Once again, I'm Brian Gary. I'm the Communications Director at Pearson College, UWC. And today I have two guests with us. I'll be talking to Michelle Jones and Heather Showers. And they're both volunteers who have been friends, I guess, of the college, is fair to say, for quite a few years. Before we get into the real story and the reason why we're going to talk about this, I would ask Michelle and Heather to introduce themselves and just talk a little bit about their connections to Pearson maybe over the years. Michelle, why don't you go first?
Well, we moved to Metchosin 5 years ago. This is my old stomping ground, summer beach parties, and way back in the late 60s, early 70s. And curiously, I had wanted to attend a world college, but they opened Pearson the year, I think, after I graduated from high school.
Darn.
So I'm a retired academic, international consultant in developing countries, and now I rescue cats.
There's honor in all of that.
Yeah. We've been taking kids from Pearson for about, the first year we were here, and both my husband and I went up to the Social Fridays. Mm-hmm. I think Heather did that too. Heather drove everyone everywhere. And then the kids started dropping by for coffee on their way home from town. And we stay in touch with a few of them. Others have moved on. So it's kind of like an extended family for me.
It's usually how it goes and how it develops, isn't it? Heather, what about you?
So I'm Heather Showers, and I have lived in Metchosin for 50 years now, all my married life. I moved across the border from Langford into Metchosin. Not far, about a half a mile.
But you came in the right direction.
I guess so. I started out in Metchosin, actually. When I came home from the hospital, my mother and father were in a little house right next door to the Metchosin Community House, actually. Mm-hmm. So for the first year, that's where I was. Then we just moved across the border. So I have a banking career of about 40 years at the Bank of Montreal. It was now called BMO. I have 2 kids and 2 grandkids who are all quite close. So I'm very fortunate, especially in this current time, that everybody is close by. I'm a garden club member. I'm a member of the Metchosin Community Association. My involvement with Pearson started probably in the 80s, when friends of ours actually were a host family first, and they invited us to their home on a number of occasions, and of course eventually said, come on, it's time you did it on your own. So 91, 92 was our first introduction, and our student was from Czechoslovakia and went home to the Czech Republic. Oh. And so that was an interesting year. So we've been a host family ever since, and have had kids just from all parts of the world, and I think we get more out of it than they do, actually. It's just been the most rewarding thing I think that Ken and I have done. And I think we thank our lucky stars that Jack and Alice got us involved way back then.
It may not surprise you, but you're not the first host family member volunteer who I've heard say something like that.
That's amazing.
It's really gratifying to us as a college community and a campus community that people in Metchosin and on the Westshore develop those kinds of connections with their students. We're very, very fortunate in that respect. Just for anyone who may be watching who isn't familiar with the geography, the district of Metchosin is sort of southwest of Victoria, the city, and it encompasses quite a large area, as we've talked about in the past. The campus of Pearson College is on unceded territory of the Shanto First Nation, which also is part of the district of Metchosin right now. So with that, let's sort of move on to what I've seen variously called the Metchosin Christmas Miracle, the 12 days of Metchosin Christmas. You know, in any case, it's an initiative, a community initiative that was I'm not going to say it was led by you and Michelle, because I know a number of people were involved, but I have a feeling that both of you were very key to this initiative. So tell us about this coming together of a community that made the winter break season, the Christmas season, a little more special for all of the students on the Pearson campus this year.
Do you want to go or shall I?
So I'm starting?
Yeah, if you can.
Okay. So Michelle and I were chatting one day, just probably about the time that we normally have the winter concert, boo-hooing
Yes.
because nothing was going on. So, of course, Michelle has a much bigger imagination than I do. So she says, and what do you think we could do for the students? So her first inclination was that we would all dress up our cars in Christmas decorations and drive down College Drive, and the students could all come out and wave. Unfortunately, the college said no to that one. So next we thought baking would be the thing to do. So we thought that would be all right. So
Food
then it was a call to
wins.
Fatma, the host family coordinator, to ask if that would be possible and what, if any, special preparations we would have to make to the baking in order to bring it down. And that's sort of where it all started. And of course, Michelle said, no, we can't just do baking. And she came up with the idea of mugs. So that's where it all started. And I'll let Michelle continue from there, I think.
Take it from there, Michelle. And I'll just say that, I mean, if you start with food, you've won over the students already.
Well, I'll go back a little bit, because I have found with the COVID pandemic that I've lost track of time. And so somewhere around the 11th of December, as I was feeling very sorry about the way things were shaping up this year, it was like an axe that came down in the middle of my forehead. And it was, I feel awful. How are the kids at the college coping? And that was right around the time Heather and I spoke. Yeah. So I immediately put an ad on Facebook Marketplace asking for a mug press. A mug press is about the size of an old Remington typewriter. And it transfers images onto mugs through heat. Within 15 minutes, Steve Gibson, who is, I guess, a descendant of the original Gibson Studios in Victoria, quite a famous photographic studio, he called me and offered me the machine as a loan and 4 dozen mugs. So I was halfway there as far as I was, I thought I was halfway there. So that's when it all, Fatma had sent out the letter, and people were calling Heather, people were calling me. We had a Zoom meeting where we decided on mugs for the boys, and Heather had already moved ahead with the girls. So over to you, Heather.
Yeah, so it was great fun, because for the past number of years, just because I've been retired and at home, we sort of have a congregation of girls that come. And we started out with boys, and now we've transferred to girls mostly. So I usually have a chest full of things in my basement that I save for occasions or whatever. So that's kind of how I started. And then I asked a few friends and whatever. So I was in charge of the female presence, and Michelle sort of was in charge of doing all the mugs, and we decided that mugs would be for the boys. So I have a 10-foot dining room table, and it was covered with presents and wrapping and gift bags and you name it. And it was a lot of fun.
So what all went into those gift packages? Mugs, warm socks for our wet winters.
That was Heather's idea. We, in the midst of all this, a former host parent, Irina Mieleka, I think her name is, contacted Pearson and in response to the letter, and they sent her to me. And she wanted to know if members of her coffee group at church if we would welcome receiving hand addressed cards for each of the students. And I thought that was pretty wonderful. Mm-hmm. And so that was moving forward. And then she had, somehow it came to the attention of the pastor of the Colwood Pentecostal Church. And he thought that this was a brilliant way to celebrate Christmas. And they made it added to funds that we had raised rapidly, very rapidly. And it allowed us to purchase the things that we didn't have on hand. So Heather went out and got extra mugs and the socks, and go on, your turn, Heather.
Yeah, so Irina and I went shopping for candies and chocolates, and yes, and I went shopping for socks. And I actually went to a dollar store over in Langford, and the lady there that once I told her what I was looking for, turned out that she grew up in Metchosin and she knew all about Pearson College. So it was absolutely wonderful. So she gave me boxes of socks and whatever. So we had socks for the boys, and I have a tote or two of knitting that I've done over the time. So I had scarves and hats and whatever for the girls mostly. So yeah, I also had a friend that was a cosmetic rep, and she gave me all sorts of stuff for the girls. And so, yeah, I mean, everybody just came together. It was fun.
Sounds
Today
like
I went shopping with Irina. We were at the superstore, and she donated $30 from her points towards all the candy that we bought. And everybody was just so generous. It was totally amazing.
It was amazing. Lorena Harrison and her friend Louise, they did the cards. They just stepped into the breach. They offered it one day, and the next day the cards were ready. It was astounding to me. There's a lady I would like to mention, especially because she's probably known to a number of students, Dieta Dolencio, who has been a homestay host since the beginning of Pearson College. And she called Fatma. And again, Fatma referred her to me, and she desperately wanted to be involved, and almost made the Zoom call, but in fact was in touch with me all the time. And her contribution was financial. And just before we packaged the goods, I received a card addressed to all the students, which I photocopied and put in each box of goodies. We divided, the boys' stuff was done here, the girls' stuff was done at Heather's. The baked goods were delivered to my house because we're closer to the college. It's about a 20-minute walk. And so in the midst of making these mugs, and I was baking, and people were knocking on my door at 8 o'clock in the evening with boxes of baked goods. Again, one of the people that I've never known to be associated with Pearson, Stephanie Johnson, she baked 600 snickerdoodles.
I saw that. That's incredible. And you've both described this as happening organically. This is just the way it happens in a community like Metchosin, and that's why I say we're so fortunate to be here.
It was amazing. I had stacks of little pieces of paper all around my computer, and my printer died before I started printing the decals for the mugs. Then my keyboard gave out, and so I was racing back and forth trying to buy parts, and people were knocking on the door, and Heather was coming over bringing stuff, and we spent two and a half days, Heather, packing up the mugs, and then you had more time doing the girls' gifts.
Yeah, for sure.
We sent over 5 trays of food and 5 boxes of food, and then a few gifts for the kids down in the hotel that they should also be remembered this Christmas.
So arriving students who were in quarantine weren't forgotten either.
No.
Perfect.
Heather was amazing. She's calm. I'm frantic. It's a.
Did we tell the story about the stove?
Which stove?
Poor Michelle. We were figuring out how to wrap up the first tray. We had round platters of all the food, right? So all the surfaces in that suite were covered with stuff, with food, everything that people had brought. It was just totally amazing. When you start out, you never figure that the donations are going to come as large as they do, right? We were all worried 2 or 3 days before that we weren't going to have enough. Well, good Lord. The community was just, anyways.
We were on our hands and knees on the floor counting biscuits.
Surface. So we put the wrapping on the stove. We put the tray on the wrapping, and we were wrapping it all up. And I had Scotch tape that we were going to tape the sides with. And I put it on the top of the stove, and it fell behind.
But you salvaged that.
So Michelle takes we took it off. Michelle takes the stove and tries to pull it out from the wall so we could get this, and the door fell off the stove.
I pulled the door right off the stove. This is
well, I think that was the highlight. It got better from there.
On behalf of Pearson College, I would like to thank you both very much. Obviously, you went to extraordinary lengths for this. But I heard about a bunch of things too, about midnight, not quite midnight, but late night runs to get toffee, people driving through a snowstorm, which is fairly rare here in the mild West Coast. But it sounds like there were all sorts of extraordinary efforts by many, many people. And like I said earlier, that if we were to have everybody who had a piece of this, we would have about 100 little screens across Zoom screens across our internet.
And that would have been fun.
That would have been fun. We had about 25 people in all, and that's couples mostly. And we didn't have time to organize anything else. It was whatever we could put together by the 23rd. And so probably if we'd had more time, we could have bugged some more people.
I think you can pat yourself on the back.
Heather is Metchosin's secret weapon.
Some days.
She organizes the Metchosin garage sale, the mighty Metchosin garage sale.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Heather is always there commanding. And so I tend to meander a bit through to get to my destination. And Heather kept me on the straight and narrow. No, we can't do that.
Heather, if you're part of the mighty garage sale, I apologize again on behalf of the college for Benoit Charlebois actually leaving, because I know he and Anna Maria were so integral to the college and the Metchosin community. But
they were so.
Yeah, and they still are. They still are.
And I miss Anna Maria because I miss having someone to speak Spanish with. So.
Well, I know both of them will be watching this once it's published. Can I ask you though? I mean, it's hard enough in normal times for something like this to come along, but during a pandemic, when you don't run into people on the street or at the store or something like that, how do you get the ball rolling? Was it all through social media and all through virtual means?
Pretty much, I think. I hate social media, but in this case, it worked very well. I'd much rather see people, talk to people on the phone. So Michelle and I did a lot of phone calls, just her and I, and Fatma as well. Like she's totally amazing.
Yes.
And then, and then the other ladies, just the one Zoom call was all they needed, and everything just.
They were away. Yeah.
They were away to the races, and it was.
I think what made it possible is that everybody took responsibility for their part, and so the group came together kind of in a disorganized way, but everybody had the same idea. They wanted to do something special for the students. And so from there, it made it really quite easy. it would have been nice to have been able to plan months ago to have the list divided up by girls and boys and house, and that got a little chaotic. But everybody wore masks when they were delivering things or picking things up, and Heather and I are the only people that actually came into contact with each other when we were packaging. I think because of the pandemic, people responded perhaps more than they might have. I think it was I said to someone, they're kids and they haven't seen their families, some of them, since September of 2019.
Exactly.
And so we're kind of the family.
Well, I'll be the first to admit, we at the college didn't know what winter break was going to look like at the beginning of the term in September. And we went through all sorts of planning scenarios for students able to go home, host families and all that. In the end, this was obviously the first time that all students stayed on campus for the winter break. And it was extraordinary. Extraordinary generosity from the community, and also extraordinary efforts by the students and volunteers on campus to plan activities, to make it enjoyable, to keep people's sort of happiness levels up a little bit. And it really was kind of an amazing experience all around. And you mentioned, I just want to follow up 1 second. You both mentioned Fatma. Fatma, of course, is our host family volunteer coordinator, but she is also sort of one of the main points of contacts with all students as they're arriving on campus. Yes. So she had huge responsibilities this year in staying abreast of all of the different rules regarding borders, travel, protocols, and all of that. And so she did incredible work. But on top of that, she worked with you folks in the community to make this happen. I feel very humbled to work with her.
I kept sending her email messages. Fatma, do you have it yet? Is the list ready?
She's one of the most positive people that I've ever met.
She is. She's amazing.
Yeah, everything can be accomplished. She never says no. It's not right off the bat, whatever you call.
But it's always nice to feel like you can make a little magic. We don't get chances to do that very often in life. And I thought that we had all made a little magic for this Christmas. Now, the students may not think we made magic, but I certainly do.
I think the students were very appreciative, trust me.
It's not a question of appreciative. It was magic.
Well, you had a quote in one of your emails, Michelle. In an incredibly dreary year, we had the opportunity to make some magic happen. And I was going to ask you about that, but I think you just explained it. I mean, it was a coming together organically of so many people in a year that was otherwise dreary for so many of us.
It's very special to have. It's very special to live in Metchosin. It's a very special group of community members. Sometimes it's the round up the usual suspects, but the usual suspects always are there. And so you talk about funny stories. Jennifer Burgess sent her husband out to buy Christmas crackers at 9 o'clock at night or something. That's the kind of spirit that drives people who volunteer in the community. Chances are they also volunteer with Pearson, and we all drop everything. That's just somehow we fit it in, don't we, Heather?
We do so. And I always say, even though Pearson has been around for more than 50 years in Metchosin, that it's almost the best kept secret. There's still lots of people in the community that have lived there almost as long as Pearson has been there that still really don't know that much about it.
It's true.
But
Yeah.
yeah, these people, they just came together. Everybody that we contacted, nobody said no. Everybody said, yes, how can we help? Because I think we all felt the same.
Yes,
You missed the student. Like I was involved with the Monday and Friday program at the through the community house. And so you miss seeing those students every week. We miss getting together for dinners and all those other things.
yes.
So that's like what one year when one of our dinners, we had 9 kids for dinner.
Oh, and last
And the
year,
student says, oh, there's 3 Europeans, 3 Africans, and 3 South Americans. Like, who would notice that?
and last year Heather had a going away party for the other magic maker in Metchosin, Barb Methvin, who's been associated with Pearson for years and years. And I had my 3 students. You had 4, I think.
I lose track, sorry. But a number anyway, yeah.
And then we had another party at the kids were, it was almost like a class of, we could have run a class.
Well,
there were so many students there.
let me just say that your generosity in hosting students for meals is incredible, because I'm sure that those 9 students that you had, Heather, probably ate like 25 people.
Yep, they all love dessert.
Yes, yes, they do. And
The boys all love meat.
We all love you for taking that on. Now, we're going to have to wrap this up pretty soon because, well, we can't let it go on forever, even though I'm totally enjoying this. But is there anything else both of you would like to say? Any other thank yous you'd like to deliver a call out to just before we wrap up?
The church is like
Yes.
Pastor Sean, who I don't think has met half the students because he is the new pastor at the church. And obviously nobody's been there this year. Like the generosity of that church, it wouldn't have happened
It's
without them,
amazing.
honestly.
It was, they allowed us to complete the project in a way that we couldn't have done it without, we just couldn't have done it without them. And yes, I think Pastor Sean, everybody was amazing. And I said to Heather the day after we finished, that was great fun. I love working with you. Let's not do it again.
That sounds like a perfect way to wrap this up. Thank you very much, Michelle, Heather, not only on behalf of the college, but thank you again for showing us what kind of a community Metchosin is. And I say this to you, but I say that to everyone who was involved in this initiative. It really was unparalleled, and I know the college will be forever grateful. So thank you very much.
It was our pleasure.
And can I say hi to all my former students?
You certainly
out there?
can.
Oh, yes.
Hi, everybody. Miss you all. Hope you're all doing well. We'll be in touch sometime soon.